nice to have a show. Some of you who were here the year after the flood when we had our first comeback show, because we didn't have one in 2018. Remember this, there was no wood on the floor, there was concrete, they finished the slab, and this had just been put in. They were kind of white, it was just
Oh,
a
did you guys flood?
sheetrock.
Oh, yeah. 3 feet.
Oh, we had this bunch here, and then it went down to about 3 feet, a couple inches, and stayed there for almost 3 full weeks like that.
Wow.
It was ripping through here, because the reservoir is just across the freeway, right there at 11 o'clock.
That's the attics?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we were bullseye.
That was bad.
Yeah. Well,
We
at
got
least we're
both
not where
reservoirs.
BP is. BP is just closer to the frontage road, and it took out their lab equipment, the bench desk, in the first floor down there.
My brother was on Dickinson Bayou and it was over their roof for days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just lovely. And it was not because of Harvey, it was because of the Corps of Engineers. They did not have to open it like that. So anyway,
And
back,
keep it open.
back to Jack.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay, Jack's done. Jack's been in the hobby, he said, since he was 10. So that was just, if you remember the Bible, it's just after Moses was found. So it'll be sometime around then. But he did get started into killifish because they wouldn't let him have small animals till he was in graduate school. He has been lucky. He got to go with Nevin Aspinwall, was invited to go to Cameroon to go collecting. He has been responsible for bringing back a number of fish from Peru. He's been on several trips down there. Come on in, Susan.
Come on in. We got chairs over here.
Come on in. For all of you who don't know, this is Miss Susan Robinson. She's our exquisite, I would say, angelfish breeder, but she keeps killies out of habit and does really well with them as well.
Hi, welcome.
Back to Jack. He has been fortunate. Jack may not remember, but when Jane and I were still dating prior to being married in the late 80s, our first actual killifish show was Slacker. We went to St. Louis. You arranged to find a Catholic church for us to go to Mass up on Maple Hill. He and Ron Coleman spent a good part of one afternoon explaining things to me, and probably got questions about 52 times and got tired of us. But they're very kind and very gracious. Been a friend a long time, even though he doesn't say that on here. He is really good. I've been to his fish room a couple of times, and he's got a setup that works very well for him and his space, but there's some tips that probably you can glean from what he's done and how he's done fish management and stuff. The other thing is, his wife is the one that everybody really likes, and we all kind of but she's up for sainthood even in the Catholic Church, and she's not Catholic because she's put up with Jack for all these years. But Jack, please come on and go through here on your fish room site. This is
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this one is, this particular PowerPoint is about designing my fish room. And, oh no, this is perfect. Unless it bothers somebody, I don't think we need to turn down the lights. Okay, the arrow, oh, that's right, we can actually touch it here. Great, okay. So, I incorporated, at the time, 30 years of fish keeping experience into the design and operation of this fish room. About 18 years ago, we found ourselves empty nesters. We had a 2-story house in Chesterfield, just outside of St. Louis. And we decided we were going to move to a 1-story house. So we started looking. We saw several of them. Then we saw this old frumpy looking one. And let's see if I can't get a picture of it. There it is. Butt ugly. Brown, dark brown windows, dark brown roof. It was just crummy looking. The pillar in the middle was sideways, and it had all this old dark paneling inside. So we lowballed. Ironically, the group that sold it to us was called We Buy Ugly Houses. And it was ugly.
It was very on brand.
So Annette had to, twist my arm a little, put some needles under my fingernails. I mean, she had to really work hard to get me to look at it. But look at it, we did.
It is, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I was taken aback when I looked at it. That is what we did. She found a friend in her business networking group, Bill Mitchell. He hired other contractors. He did a fantastic job. He says, let's change the color, let's change the roof, let's put a real pillar in front, let's plant some bushes. That's not what sold me. let me show you what sold me when it was still a butt. We discovered that despite the fact that we had to do a tremendous amount of work in the upstairs, the basement had some fantastic space. This is a 14 by 38 room in the back, all linoleum. And I said, oh my God, I know exactly what I'm gonna use this for. At that point, I fell in love with that butt ugly old house. So, and we also found another office on the other side of the basement for her law office, and a big room for my media room, my TV, my surround sound, which she never lets me use because she's got to concentrate when
Yes,
she's at work.
right, yeah.
So she bought me what's it called, Alexa for my fish room, so I can hear all my music. So anyway, it was the perfect room. It was what I had always dreamed about when we had a two-story and not as much space. That's the other side of the room. And so my gears started working immediately. And I said, oh boy, this is it. So I sat down. Like a good engineer, which I'm not, I drew it to scale. And let me stand up for a minute. These are 4 racks. 1, 2, 3, 4 for 10-gallon tanks. This was going to be and is for 2-gallon tanks for breeding pairs of fish. This is a flow-through system for fry. This is, it's a very small footprint. These are 18-gallon squat breeders, the old aluminum frame ones. And I had a friend in our Maasai group who sold me these tanks for next to nothing. I patched them up. They work perfectly. These are work benches. This is another bench that held my pump, my air pump, and a battery backup, because we did have a lot of battery problems in those days. This is a back room, which turned out to be my workbench and everything. These are barrels. These are fiberglass barrels. Only I have 3 of them here now, and 2 back here. 1 for RO, 1 for regular water, sink, and another RO. And my workbenches are back here. This is a flow-through system. This is a 1.5 PVC conduit, which received water from the overflows in 2 places, these 2 places, and I'll explain it a little bit later. The overflow goes to the back room and down a drain. So it's not a recirculating system, if it's an overflow system, and I'll explain it to you a little bit later. It was all part of the original design. The racks were to be rafters, 2x12s, which I painted with marine varnish. Let me show you the design. Come on, guys. Here it is. The racks are 12 foot by 12 inch by 4 inch, or I'm sorry, 12 by 4 by 1 rafter boards. I had to make sure I got very straight ones because you can get them very warped. I painted them with 2 coats of marine varnish. The verticals are electric, threaded electric bars, and those support the centerpieces. And the feet you see down below are short pieces of 2x12s. So let me show you the finished product. I keep looking down here. This is where I should be looking. Show you my finished product. If I can get it to change. There it is. Okay, you see the 2x12s here.
Yeah.
These are the electrical rods. They support the ceiling. They support it all the way up to the top. These are the feet, and I have the the fiberglass pads underneath the feet so they don't scratch up. I store my empty tanks down here, and I've got 3 levels. What you see up here, these tubes are 2 things. They're the air, and they are also water delivery, because I have a flow-through system here. These are 10s, by the way. And this is a picture from the media room. Okay. Oh, God. So that was the first step in it. I'm going to show it to you from the back now. Come on, cooperate. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Those are the 2-gallon tanks, the critter keepers. And rather than have those big bulky tops on them, I cut light cover when you could still get it where it wouldn't work, the Sterilite light cover.
Yeah.
And that took up a lot less space. I put little PVC end caps through the light cover as a handle. You can see those. And then I put contact paper on the tops of them because I had lights up there. I didn't want them to get a lot of algae in them. So those are for breeders. I'll put, for instance, a male in there. I'll keep in there, fatten him up for a couple of weeks, and then I'll introduce a female. And initially they go bonkers. I've got a ton of eggs. And I reserve this for fish that are difficult to breed. They're being stubborn with their eggs. And it has worked fantastically. I've got 2 levels that you see there. The middle level, I put some tanks on, but mostly I keep that for supplies. This system has worked tremendously for me. I get a lot of eggs out of it. And it works very effectively. I don't use it for annuals. I strictly use it for non-annual killifish, and there are mops in every one of those tanks.
Jack, are those on a flow through also?
They used to be, but what I found is my pump wasn't efficient enough to deliver water equally to all of them. So I shut it down because in the back room where you saw, I have a sink, and I've been able to attach a python to it, you know, the hose, and do negative pressure, suck the water out very quickly, deliver it through another hose from my aging barrels, and I can do all the water changes on this one, the next one, and the next one over in about an hour. It's really become very efficient. I save it for a Saturday, and I do all my water changes at one time. All the 10s, as you'll see, are on the automatic water changing system. These no longer are, because they just weren't being distributed as well. But it's really not a problem because it takes a very short time. Okay, here we go. We were just discussing this. This is the fry containers. These are the 1-gallon shoe boxes. And again, they used to be on the flow-through. You can still see the delivery system. But what I discovered is when I had everything going in the delivery, these were receiving water much more slowly. So I shut off the delivery to them, and I strictly do that manually with the Python. And I do it very efficiently, and it goes very, very fast. And these have been a lifesaver. You have to be careful with this system. We were just talking about that. You have to be ready to take the fry out when they reach a certain size, because they can get dwarfed, and they can get terrible spinal problems, and they can get aggression if they grow too fast and it becomes too crowded. So you have to be very alert with this system. You have to move them to the 10s as soon as you think they're ready.
I've never had that problem, Jack. I don't have that many fish. They just don't breed that much. Mine would never get overcrowded. And
So-
How do you get that many eggs?
I like the system, but I don't have to worry about that.
There you go. There you go. So by the way, these are all these are all coated with marine varnish. So I had very little problem with
Can I ask
water.
a question?
Sure.
You were talking about how the flow was inadequate for certain portions. Were you trying to flow everything at one time?
I was.
Did you ever consider using a splitter timer?
I did, not a timer, but a splitter. I had a lot of trouble with the timer. You're talking about the outside one for watering lawns or watering gardens and so on. It's not very reliable for this.
What about drip emitters?
Well, I'll show you. I did try drip emitters. I was not pleased with them. They leaked like a sieve. And I found a very inexpensive valve from Gemco that is absolutely leak-proof. I did use the plumber's tape with it, and they gave me a tap. You know,
Little
you drill a
black one
small
from
hole and you
Anaco?
do a tap, and they screw in very tight. And they're virtually leak-proof.
With the little black ones from
Yeah.
Anaco?
The 75-cent
Yep,
black
I know.
ones, yeah. So they are really perfect. But that was the third iteration. The first one was the drip emitters. The second one was small pieces of rigid tubing. And both of those failed. And the third time around, I used the Gemco valves, those inexpensive ones. Perfect. In 18 years, I have not had a leak with those. I have had to take them out from time to time and clean them out with a pipe cleaner. But that's the worst of it. I mean, they've been very reliable. Oh, I wanted to show you this. These are the old flat breeders that I told you about. The frame ones, they don't make them anymore, but they are available, you know, at, you'll see them at fish auctions. A lot of people want to get rid of them. These have been fantastic for me for the big populations of larger killifish like Lamatii, Epiplates lamatii, I raise in the upper one. In the middle one I raise Pachypanchex saccharamii. And I can raise big volumes of large fish in these because there's tremendous surface area.
They're
Lot of
deep, right?
plants.
They're deep?
They're not deep, they're wide.
Wide.
And
Wide,
by deep, from back to front, yes.
Okay.
Tremendous surface area.
Are they like
And that's
12 by-
the secret.
Like a box kind of thing almost?
Yeah,
Okay, wow.
Exactly.
That would be big.
exactly. And
It's a pond.
the footprint is 2.5 by 2.5. So it's very
Oh.
small.
Yeah.
And they've been tremendously, in fact, I've got a crack in one of them, and for some unknown reason, it doesn't leak. I've never patched it. It's just a crack in the glass, but it doesn't leak. I'll see a little brown, so I know it's seeping.
Ah, okay.
So, but no real problems with it. Simple sponge filters, you know, in the corner. Or, you know, if I have an unusually dirty fish in there, I will use the box filters. But typically I just use the sponge. This thing has been incredible. I've raised cichlids in it, I've raised Lamatii, every kind of epiplat, every kind of Procatopus. Or not Procatopus, I'm sorry, Pectopanchex. And they're very efficient. So those are my three specialty groups. Let me talk a little bit about the tins. I think that's the next thing on the schedule. Doesn't want to move, Jane. There
There
we
you
go.
go.
There we go. Okay, that's a close-up of Epiplates masana in one of the 18 breeders. And it has, every fish I've raised in there have been very good luck. Occasionally lopsided ratios, but that's not the fault of the tank. That's the nature of the beast. Okay, God bless Gemco. They produce this linear piston air compressor. It's a free-floating piston. It has a reservoir down at the bottom. One of the problems is this is, you know, the vinyl tubing heats up tremendously. The one mistake I made with this is I didn't have a vent. And there was a lot of back pressure, and occasionally I would burn out the reservoir. And rather than, these are so inexpensive, I mean, you know, talking about a pump, this is a pump that services the entire room. And I mean, it's very powerful. But you can tell when you're doing it wrong because it overheats tremendously. To the right is a battery backup, which I let expire. I haven't gotten a new battery in some time. But I now have it at the other end of this back bench. And I have a fan running on it 24/7, a small fan. And this is I'm on my third one now, and I finally got smart enough to create a vent with a faucet-like thing that I can control the amount of air that goes to the entire. If I see that the Tanks at the far end are not getting enough air. I just tighten the handle and deliver more air to them. But the fact that I have air at one end that's escaping has prevented this thing from overheating. And since I've had this set up, I haven't burnt out any reservoirs on these
Wow.
ones. This is, the one I have now is my fourth. This is what you're looking at is my second. But this is an incredibly efficient unit. 600 and something watt is the max on the battery backup.
Who's the
It's an 80 watt unit. Pardon?
Who's the manufacturer?
Gemco.
Gemco.
Contracts it. It's a Japanese manufacturer, but it'll have the Gemco label on it. Unfortunately, John Meyer and his wife are going out of business. They haven't been able to get help since the pandemic, and they're gradually shutting down Gemco.
Oh, wow.
It'll be a while. I talked to him on the phone, Jack, after
Did
he
you?
came back. And
Good.
they're slowing down
Okay.
dramatically, and they're having trouble. They're not handling as much business, and they're
Yeah.
not pulling stuff in except, or excuse me, until it is ordered. But they are not, repeat, not going out of business, because I called and I said, aren't you guys going out of business? Oh, no, we're just slowing down a lot, we're getting old. I said,
Alright.
can I still get this, and this? Yeah, it just takes 10 days to get it now. I don't have it in the back, I don't keep inventory much anymore.
Well, he doesn't have a lot of live food, or frozen foods anymore.
That's correct, that's
Yeah.
correct. So I have to
Right.
order, correct.
Yeah.
So,
But I still get my freeze dryer from it, and that's what I'm gonna miss. Those are great.
Question for you on
features.
your pump though, so you don't burn it out. Why didn't you, wait a second, why didn't you just drill a hole at the far end and put a valve in there and open it till you hear it whistle? Because that's what I do.
Because
on
he
the
never
damn-
explained to me to do that. He finally thought of it,
Yeah.
you
because-
know, 15 years into my hobby.
Yeah, I had a blower.
And
that-
that's when I finally replaced it, and I haven't had any trouble
Yeah.
since.
How long would your battery backup last?
The battery backup depends on how long the electric goes out to the work. When we first moved in there, we had 2 outages that were 5 to 7 days. And this lasted 2 days
That's pretty good.
at the time. So, and they're expensive batteries, you know, they're the big block batteries. And so I became somewhat discouraged with it. But after that, we got a local politician involved, or somebody was at Annette, wasn't it a lady who was in Jefferson City,
Yeah, well, she was a state representative.
state rep? She arranged to have our electric, our Ameren hookup changed to another one. We haven't had those long outages. The last one was like 5 hours a couple of weeks ago. We haven't had those week-long outages in 18 years.
Good.
It was basically the first year we moved in. So I've let the battery expire and I really haven't redone it, but I need to. Because if your electrical is out too long, your sponges start to die. You know, the bacteria that you've built up starts.
How loud is that pump whenever you have it on? Is it fairly quiet? Yeah.
Very
It's
quiet.
not
What's
bad.
loud
It's
is the
basically-
valve, you know, the release valve hisses.
You can talk down there.
Okay, because we have a big 1 horsepower pump for our warehouse, and I was just loud. I wanted to know if these are
Wow.
significantly
This is
quieter.
very quiet.
Yeah.
Very quiet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It has to be quiet, because Annette would pound on the wall and then pound on him when he came by.
Yeah, it gets ugly. The other problem I have is when I fill the barrels, occasionally one of them overflows, goes under the wall and flows into her law office. Then she
Oh.
serves me with papers.
That's not pretty.
No, it's,
That's
she's
why
not
he's got
happy.
long pants on, covers the bruises.
Jimco has like 5 or 6 sizes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a better way to do it?
James, he's having trouble with
I'm
that.
gonna do it.
Yeah, why don't you,
Face
why don't
down
you
or
help
arrow
me?
down?
I will forward it for you.
He's having trouble with
It's
that.
being stubborn. Anyway, it serves my entire room and it's a really efficient pump. Okay, this is the inside of the back, and I'm gonna get a little closer. Up here, you see pipes, a vertical pipe, and it takes you to the drain. Okay, let me see the next one, because I'm not sure we had the runoff installed at that point. Okay, first thing I want to talk about, and this is obsolete already, we put in T8 fixtures. And we didn't put in direct lighting because killies don't like direct lighting as much as some of the other fish do. So I only put it in selected tanks where I didn't have killies, where I had other types of fish. I've since upgraded to the what are they called?
LEDs?
The LEDs.
Yes.
Sorry, senior moment. Anyway, the LEDs are really doing a good
Not
job.
good, you
That's
asked
my
another
electric
senior,
timer.
Jack, that was not a good idea.
Pardon?
You asked another senior, you should ask one of the young people.
One of the kids.
We're both screwed. That's one of the kids here.
Thank you, kid. So, this is my timer, it's in the furnace room, and it turns it on 9 o'clock in the morning, and turns it off 10 o'clock at night. So the whole room. So that's a humidistat, well, that's the setting for the humidistat. It does a good job, that's the humidity fan. It does a good job, but what does a far better job controlling the humidity, and they're no longer available unfortunately, is the light cover, the Sterilite light cover. And you'll see that a little bit later as I show you how to put together a tank. Okay, those are my workbenches. That's my live food bench. You can tell it's beautifully organized. I have to figure out where everything is. So, and the next one is my workbench, which is even better organized. So, they have been a lifesaver. Everything is on there. That is the 1 3/4. That's the drain, and it goes to the back. And this is pre-flow through. I mean, I was planning to flow through, but I hadn't finished all the drilling yet. So I was just going from tank to tank, and I was draining through that thing. That's the drain. It goes. That's my workroom in the back, my workbench, and it just goes down the drain there. But here's the aquarium setup. This is where I'll show you the polystyrene light cover. Cracked glass is what I used. They still have it, but it works now. They don't have the type that doesn't work, so you can't really use it anymore. Now I have to use something a little more expensive. It's called polyphenol. It's a petroleum-derived plastic. It's thicker, easier to work with, but you know, the price goes up every time I go down to buy it, so it's
They
bad.
see you coming, Jack.
Huh?
They see you coming.
They see me coming, they say, oh, there's that sucker again, you know?
Mark it up.
Okay, so I use, I actually mentioned the polypropylene sheeting also. I use 1.5 inch CPVC pipe ends and caps as my handles for those things. There they are. There's a CPVC. I drill a hole with a spade bit, which I clamp between two 2x4s, and it makes for a nice clean hole. That corner I cut off for the air tubing, and I use an extra piece. You can see the hole in there. I use a little tile drill, bit to drill that little hole, and it works real well.
Where is that?
That's for the air tubing.
You put that on top of the other?
Yeah, underneath the other. Go to the next one and I'll show you. Okay, so I lay this one across the bottom.
I see, yeah.
There's the hole. And here's the rest of it, and there's the handle.
Oh, I see.
And they work
Okay.
beautifully.
Okay.
Until they get old and brittle, you know. And so that's why I've gone more to the polypropylene. Here are the contents. The gravel. In those days, I used car seat sponge, which had a preservative in it, so I used it as little as possible, but I didn't have a lot of sponge filters in those days. When I order them in bulk from John Meyer, from Gemco, I get a real good discount on the sponge filter. So I've gone entirely to, you know, the manufactured sponge filters, and I put these on the shelf. I put them away. I use Java ferns, Java moss, and a mop, of course. 2 if it's a bigger tank. And that's how I set them up. There's one more element, and that's drilling the tank. Oh, okay, we're still talking plants and Merrimack gravel. which is a very nice small grill. And these are my snails. These are ram's horns. I find they are the absolute best snails for the tanks and for my screw boxes where I keep my fry. They're a much cleaner snail than the others. This is the established aquarium. And, you know, all of these things have served me very well. So that's what they look like when they're done. But I want to show you the drilling, setting up a breeding tank. Okay, those are the components. These are the components of the breeding tank. Again, a sterilite top. I use a black or a gray contact paper on it. One mop, small sponge. Let me think for a minute. Java moss and long fiber peat, which is a product from Europe. And those are oak leaves, dried oak leaves. They generate tannins, and you end up with something in which the fish are very comfortable if you stay on top of the water changes. And in a 2-gallon tank, that's extremely important because they go south very quickly. So sponge filter, spawning mop, and tank top. Yeah. And that's an established breeding tank. And one of the techniques I have is to isolate the male in there. And he gets fat, but he doesn't get happy because he's very lonely. About 2 weeks later, I'll set up or I'll introduce the female there, and he's in ecstasy. And that's when we get our eggs, you know. And I try to do it, if I can, in conjunction with a thunderstorm, with, you know, barometric pressure, and they go crazy.
Wow.
So, and it really helps with reluctant fish, the ones that just don't produce an intent.
Is the female lonely as well during that, or is she
The
tolerant?
female will have other males sometimes, but other times I just isolate her as well. And fatten her up. A lot of worms, a lot of black worms when you can afford them. A lot of white worms and grindles. And Daphne, and she's pretty happy by the time I deliver her. Nice fat belly. And of course I have, but anyway, I get a lot of production that way, even in this weather. So anyway, I'm a very big fan of critter keepers. They have really been a big part of the fish room.
Moving on.
So please, yeah. You know what I'm not seeing? That's me with hair, by the way. So it's, you know, it's an old. What I'm not seeing, and I'm sorry, is the drilling. Maybe I'll get to that a little. I don't remember the exact sequence. Okay, let me talk about feeding for a little bit. That's a baster. I'm sure there I'm doing frozen foods. I cycle frozen foods, flatworms, and freeze-dried, which I get from John Mayer. I get about 4 different kinds of freeze-dried foods. I blend them in a blender with a little water, and then I freeze them into cakes in the freezer. Then I defrost them, and I baste it to each tank, and I rotate. One night it's bloodworms, another night it's frozen brine, another night it's my frozen concoction of freeze-dried foods. All of them are nutritious, but it creates a variety. And always baby brine shrimp. I start with baby brine shrimp, and then I do the second feeding with charter feeding. And then I start getting a ringing on the phone, and it's Annette that says, dinner's ready anytime you are. She's been very understanding most of the time. So,
How many times a day do you feed?
I feed once except for the fry. With the fry in, I'll show you my fry box, I feed twice a day. In the morning, microworms, and in the evening, the brine shrimp. But I'm careful how much I feed because I'll show you my screw boxes. They're relatively confined, they're relatively small. And if you don't have ram's horns and you overfeed, it can pollute them very quickly. So plants and ram's horns are musts in the screw boxes. Okay, this is basically what I feed. You don't see the freeze-dried there, but that's a big part of the diet. That's every 3rd night. But there they are. They're there. There's the freeze diet. I forgot this is the second version of this. The one on the left is krill. sorry, the middle one is mysis, and on the right is blood wax. All freeze-dried, all real nutritious, and reasonable prices online. They're very affordable. These are my live foods. What you see with the cotton up there is paramecium, and then over to the left are vinegar eels, and then on the far left is the brine shrimp. They're in a heated tub, and I harvest them every 24 hours. So these are the formulas. For the paramecium are far and away the easiest. Treated water, corn husks are dried peas, and a new culture. Feed directly from the bottle. You don't have to siphon them or anything. Fresh water in a pipette. Once a month, I run it through a fine wheat net, get the crud out, put in new kibble, new dog food kibble, and that's what I feed them, and they're fine for another month. You hold them up to the light, you can see the paramecium. You can see them with the naked eye if you've got good
Your
close
eye,
vision.
not mine.
Pardon?
Your eye, not mine. I
Yeah,
can't.
I have to take off my glasses to see, to be honest. These are the vinegar eels on the left. There's the paramecium on the right. Paramecium has more brown color when flakes. Vinegar eels, I consider more of a pain in the butt. Not raising them, very easy. Harvesting them, because I don't like putting vinegar in small containers. It acidifies them very quickly. So I either run them through a coffee filter, the old style paper coffee filters, or I do that tedious job with the long neck jar, you know, where you put a piece of, you've got the, see if I've got that jar. Small slice of that, okay, and that's the culture. Pour solution through a coffee filter. Go one more. No, I guess I don't have it. I have a long neck jar, and I take a piece of filter floss on the end of a pipe cleaner, and I shove it all the way down to the bottom of the neck. Everything below that is filled with vinegar eels and vinegar. You know, it's half vinegar, half treated water. Everything above that is fresh water. Now, if the filter floss is new, they will migrate. This is weird, I don't know how it happens, but the vinegar eels migrate from the vinegar in the lower part of the jar up the neck, and you get pure water with the vinegar eels in the upper part. Then you pipe at it and dump it into the screw boxes. And for the smaller hatchlings, for the smaller new hatchlings, it's a perfect meal. It's an ideal, it's smaller than the microworms, smaller than the Walter worms. It's smallest, it's a nematode, and it's the smallest of those worms. And as they grow, within a week to a week and a half, they can handle you know, regular Walter worms or microworms or whatever, and regular Artemia, regular newly hatched brine shrimp. So the brine shrimp, 2 liters of water, 2 tablespoons of non-iodized salt, 1 teaspoon of Epsom, 3 drops of unscented bleach so we don't get that crummy film. And that doesn't hurt it if it's that small amount. Sometimes I accidentally put in 4 drops. Really doesn't hurt it. I currently do 3/4 of a tablespoon because you know, I hate to go through the cans that quickly because they're not cheap. I keep them in the freezer, by the way. But now I've got a lot of fish. I really picked up a lot of fish at the last convention, so I use more shrimp eggs. I bubble them vigorously for 24 hours, 85 degrees. I have a heater in there. And run the solution through either a handkerchief or a shrimp net, very, very fine weave, and then I transfer them into a cup where I go around feeding them. There's the setup. I now have that thing is since kicked out on me, so I now have a 10-gallon tank, and And I keep 2 bottles going in case I need one for morning and evening. Those are the worms. Now I keep them on top of the racks because I find out that they have to be a little warmer. They seem to do a little bit better.
I got a question. So on your brine strips, you're saying by adding the bleach, you don't have to clean your bottle in
That's
between
correct.
every?
You don't get that film.
Oh, wow.
Well, I still dump it after every, I don't recycle the water.
But you don't have to get in there and clean it all out?
No, I
Wow.
just do a vigorous wash under the faucet and it's clean.
Wow.
I don't get that deposit, that slime with film.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really works. It's non-scented bleach, you know, the plain old bleach that we dump down the shower. So, okay, this should serve us all 3 worms. We got Walter worms, micro worms. What's the
Banana
third one?
Banana.
Why?
Bananas. Bananas are the smallest. This is no longer available, Gerber single grain barley. So I use a little mix. It is baby food, and then a little bit of a little bit of brewer's yeast, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, there's one more thing.
They don't make puffed rice anymore either, Jack.
Yeah,
About
that's
10
right.
years, so
The
you got.
puff
I
rice
use the
was
rice
terrific.
cereal though.
That was a great.
Rice cereal?
Yep.
I use the baby
Like
rice
Rice
cereal.
Krispies?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, would Rice Krispies work?
Baby rice cereal, yeah.
Yeah, I use baby rice.
Yeah, I've used that, I forgot about that, I've used that in the past and it's worked very well. I always drop a little bit of yeast in there, but just a pinch. And, you know, within a couple of days they're crawling up the sides. Once a week I stir the mixture, and if I stir it, you know, religiously, they don't get the bacteria and start going south until 4 to 5 weeks. So I can keep the culture going if I remember to work with it. Add some culture, you know, add some food and stir it really well. When they start going south, you know it. But it's a great food. I mean, all 3 of those are terrific foods for the product. And there's a really active culture. You can look under the light and you see the whole surface is covered with them. And then they start crawling up the walls. Sometimes I'll sand the walls a little bit on those lead containers. And if you sand it, if you roughen it up, they'll crawl up quicker. But I don't do that very much anymore because I found all right, these are the grindles, and this is the most hotly debated one. Everybody has a different way of doing it. Currently, I'm doing it with kibble, dog food, and wetting it down real well on the scrub pads. And I make sure I have the non-soap scrub pads. And, well, I say kitten chow there, I'm doing dog chow now. Cover it with a poly bag, wet it real well. And when they're ready for harvest, you can tell because they gather at the top under the poly bag. And you just dump them in water and you're ready to go. They're a great intermediate food for the larger fry. I call them juveniles. Most of that food goes to my shoe boxes, my larger fry containers. That's an example. Only I use a shoe box now. I don't use these small boxes anymore. I find out that shoe boxes have a lot more area to spread out. So there I have the medium. In those days it was George Swoda Worm Farm. I don't think you can get it anymore. But there's still, you know, still a mixture of peat and African potting soil that you can use, African violet potting soil. But here's the scrub pads. That's a good example of the big green ones you get at the store. And they do a good job. So the white worms I keep in the back on the floor. I don't use a wine fridge as a lot of people do. I just use the that. Let me know if I'm going over time.
Oh, I don't know what time it is.
Just keep talking, Jack, I'll cut you off, don't worry, no problem.
All right,
We're halfway through.
just say
Halfway,
Jack, shut the hell up.
punch those slides faster,
Okay.
woman.
Request.
You're doing fine, Jack.
With these guys, I use yeast, little baker's yeast. You gotta make sure it's active. I take off the crust, lay it on the surface. The size of the piece of bread is according to the population. You build it up slowly. But
Watch it.
if you stay on top of it, these cultures last a good 6 months before they start going south. Also, if they're wet, you have to wet them, and the water soaks through the sponge and goes to the bottom. If you pipette that out and put it under a 500x scope, you'll see a lot of protozoans. And those are great for feeding. You know, I keep parameciums, so I don't need a lot of protozoans, but if you don't have paramecium, this is a fantastic source of it. You have to wet them with tank water, and sometimes I'll squeeze a little of the sponge filter to get some of the stuff. Wet the worms with that extract, and you'll get a lot of protozoans in addition to your white worms. And it's a real nice way to raise them. So here you see the mix. In those days, George slowed the worm farm, but now it's just African violet potting soil and peat in even balance. I don't like pure peat because it's a little bit too acidic. These worms, you know, again, last 6 months to a year if you feed them regularly.
What temperature do you keep them at?
Pardon?
What temperature do you keep them at?
I keep them cold. I keep them about 65. I keep them on the floor in the back room dark. I used to keep them in a wine cooler, but I've had trouble with those small wine coolers. They die after a couple of years. The compressor seems to go out of them. I paid, you know, like $75 at Sam's. But they don't
Maybe
last
it's either
long.
that or you got bad wine in it, Jack.
Well, I got muscatel.
Oh, well, that's the problem.
You know, and sweet Rocio gravy.
Yeah.
So, you
No
know,
Boone's
this is
Farm?
one I can attach to my head.
No Boone's Farm?
Hard?
No Boone's Farm?
No Boone's Farm.
Dang.
Oh, 2-buck chuck.
There you go.
2-buck chuck. That's good stuff. Okay, these are my old buddies. I keep them, after I build up enough of them, I keep them in a kiddie pool on my back porch over Annette's complaints. And, and if I stay on top of them, I use a microalgae that I keep in my beer fridge. Couple of drops. Here it says spirulina, paprika, and brewer's yeast, which is a good solution. I get it from nuts.com very inexpensively. And
1 teaspoon for a 10-gallon, or is that for the kiddie pool?
it's, yeah, I think for a 10-gallon. I use a little more than a kiddie pool. So anyway, I do a water change once a month. It says 50% HC. That's not correct. I do it about once a month. And with the back porch kiddie pool, I basically bucket it out, throw it on the hostas, and carry up some tank water from the basement, drag it all the way to the back porch, and empty it in there. And they do real well until this 95-degree weather hits. Then I have trouble. They don't like the heat, even though they're in the shade on a closed porch.
So that's where you're keeping them in the winter?
I don't keep them in the winter there. I keep them downstairs in those big 18-gallon
further in there.
tubs. Yeah. Well, I used to have these Daphne tanks. Now I have the sterile tubs. Yeah. And they do all right in there. They don't do great.
Do you think there's anything leaking from the plastic as opposed to when you had it in a glass tank?
Pardon?
Because I'm keeping mine now in glass tanks and having less crash.
Oh, really? I've heard that about, but you know, that's disconcerting because I've got all my fry in the sterile.
But it's
Or in
changing
the,
the water blocks in here too.
Yeah.
How often do you feed out? Are you feeding like half the contents a day or just a little bit? Like
Just a little bit into the breeders. I don't spread it to all my tanks because I've got 72 tanks on these wrecks. Well, not anymore. I've let a lot of the bottom ones go empty. But I couldn't support, based on the number of Daphne I have, I couldn't support all those tanks. So I focused primarily on the breeders and on the 18 squads, the 18 breeders, and on the fry tanks. And in the screw jars, which I'll show you in a little bit, they're fantastic when I go on vacation. I dump a few Daphne in each one. These are for the new hatchlings. And it sustains them for 3 to 4 days. You know, even if my helper didn't come in and feed them every second day. So,
Which variety of Daphnia do you use?
Magnum,
Magna?
yeah. And what's the real tiny one? Momina. I always also use Momina for the small fry. Yeah. I just got a fresh launch of those. I'm almost reluctant to talk about these guys. It breaks my heart because all my dendrobatids are gone. I had some gorgeous dart frogs, Leucomellus and Azurias. I inherited from my son when he moved to New York. He had them when he was in medical school, and then when he got his residency in New York, he gave the dendrobatids and the saltwater tank to me. Saltwater tank is gone. I don't miss it. I do miss the dendrobatids. They were with me for 15 years, and then all 4 of them crashed about the same time. But they last a long time. I had them for 15 years. So this is the formula that I use. It's 8 cups of potato. Like I mix it in a big gallon Ziploc, which I shouldn't be saying in Annette's presence because she's been wondering where her Ziplocs go. But anyway, 8 cups of potato flakes, powdered sugar, methylparaben I get from a friend who has a chemical company, Jerry Joe's, or I can get it from Carolina Biological. Half a cup of brewer's yeast. And it makes about 30.5 cultures, about 8 cents a culture. This is from David Doyle. He's a friend. He has a business in dendrobatids. He does very well. He's moved to Kansas City, sardian.com. But he, as good as he is, I would recommend Josh's frogs if you want to look into getting some of this. And I've had the best luck with the Azurias and the Leucomellus. Which one of them is the yellow spotted one? Is that Leucomellus?
I don't remember.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. I think the Azurias is the blue. But anyway, that's how I keep them. I use the straw, you know, and or the Excelsior. And it's messy, but you get a lot more flies with them. They're also terrific for epiplates and any top feeding, also for New World killers, because these are all top feeders. And I'll take the top of a Coke bottle, you know, the big liter bottles, put it in at the head of a those plastic mustard bottles, you know, the pointy thing, and you squeeze them. I put them in there, I cap it real quick, and I squeeze them in each of my 10-gallon tanks, and those top feeders will smack them. You know, as long as you don't have too much floating paint there. They spot them, they smack them. And it's a terrific food. I don't use it every day, but it is really great. But like you said, Mark, staying on top of them is a job. So anyway, that's what they look like new. That's what they look like. You're seeing the maggots on the side. And it takes them about 2 weeks to develop. It's a fantastic food for top feeders. For middle and bottom feeding fish, it's not as good. But the insectivorous ones that feed at the top.
If you get new apiplates, especially those imports now, you're seeing commercial imports, if you've got some fruit flies, they start eating right away.
It's magic.
Yes,
yeah.
it is. Because they think they're home.
And applicatus too.
Yes, oh yeah. Yeah, but you need a lot of flies for those bigger applicatus.
Yeah. Okay, here is the automatic system. That's the heart of it. That's the drill. It's a diamond stud drill, 7/8 inch, and it's a cording bit from GordonGlassUSA.com. You can see it up close here, the little diamonds on there. They'll get gupped up with glass and with medium, and what you have to do is spin them through a clearing block, and that cleans them up. Gordon Glass will show you that too. The tanks are fitted inside with a little wooden clamp. A little clay dam is built on top. You want to go to the next one?
I'm trying.
Today.
Yeah, I'm having the same trouble you are. Apparently the ladies can do this, but we can't.
They have more delicate
I'm
touch.
pushing the bejesus out of it, nothing's happening.
Yeah. You keep pressing and pressing.
There you go.
There we go, okay. I'm setting it up here, there's the inside thing. Now, you're seeing my drill press here. I no longer use a drill press. If I have to drill one of these, I use my good old hand drill and let the weight of it sit on the dam, which is right here. It's just a clay donut, and the stuff is inside. It's a, you see it in that blue container. I mix that with water, and it's a grit, and that grit will grind through. It takes about a minute. You have to be careful. No, very little pressure. You let the weight of the drill create the pressure. So, go ahead and I'll show you it. Now, this is not accurate, of course, because I'm showing the drill press there, and I've broken more than a few of them with the drill press. The inside frame is very important, because that supports it and keeps.
There you go, there's your.
There we are. There we are. There's my coolant. So I'm about to go in, and I'm going to be very careful. Take a minute, and there we are. There's the slug, and there's the hole. And then I go around it with, it's not sandpaper, what's it called for glass?
Emery.
Yeah, and it works out beautifully. Jerry Jost, my friend who owns the chemical company, fixed me up with these PVC elbows, inserts, and barbs. There's the combination. That's the insert, of course, there's the barb. I use, gaskets outside and inside. And there's a complete bulkhead. Inside, here, I fill it with a slug from a sponge filter. And I get these slugs in a big bag from Gemco for $3 whole. That's what they cost me. And that keeps the fish, of course, from overflowing into the drain. That's a complete setup. Okay, so there you have it. So I do drill another hole in the lid, and that's where the water is delivered. So these are the drums. These are the front room drums, the fish room drums. And there are 3 of them. You can see they're tied together by an overhead siphon. I have to evacuate that with my mouth. No fun. And there's the pump. It's a Beckett epoxy encapsulated water pump with a 6-foot lift. And it's inside the first drum, and all 3 drums are tied together. And this is, that black tube is where the water is delivered. Drops down here, and it services all 3 levels. And I've got them shut off at the far end. So you can see it here. And what happens is we deliver the water. Here are the, you were asking about the valves. These are the ones from Gemco. They're 75 cents a pop. He sent me the tap for free. The tap, does threading and everything. You wrap a little pipe tape around it. They screw in tight. You never have a leak on them. You do have to send a pipe cleaner into them occasionally. But anyway, there's the water. It delivers to the tank. And then what you saw in the back is overflow. So I have an engineer friend from our Minnesota club, Milo Squires, and he figured out what my exchange rate is. It runs to about 18% for each flow. And I do it 3 times a week. And so I get over 50%, close to 50% a week. So you asked about the drip emitters. I tried them initially, they leaked like a sieve. I really didn't like them. They have a little, the rigid tubing goes into the delivery system, and then you attach them to the rigid tube. I take that back, I'm sorry. They have their own tubing, the drip emitters.
Yeah.
And there's a punch that you use with them. They're wonderful outside for a garden. They're horrible for this. And there was a guy.
Where did it leak?
It
Where the
leaked
connection
at the
is to the
source
hose.
right here.
Okay, so that's a different
type of system than what I'm familiar with, but yeah.
Okay. It might have been a different manufacturer.
Yeah, there's a
Is there several?
variable, what I have is basically like a little manifold
Uh-huh.
that has 12 outlets.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
running airline from there to
Yeah.
a drip emitter. The drip emitter actually goes in the tank.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I found some of the drip emitters that have a variable adjustment.
You can close them or open
And
them.
so, you know, based on where they are in the rack, you know,
Yeah.
the level, you're basically adjusting for head, so.
Yeah. And you can do that with the little valves too. But I just had a very hard time with it. Yeah, remember, it's 18 years ago. So, you know, they may not have been as contemporary as they are now. I can't even remember the vendor.
Yeah.
They weren't terribly expensive. But I went through 3 iterations until I realized that Gemco's valves were the best. Water characteristics, my pH is 8.5 out of per tap. German hardness is 7, KH is 4. I treat these drums with 3/4, I used to treat them with 3/4 teaspoon of sodium thiosulfate. Now I do a solution of the sodium thiosulfate. I just used to drop it directly into the drums. What I find out is I'm much better diluting it, swirling it, and you can tell when it's working because the water is super cold. I use so many ounces of water in a cup. Put in 6 tablespoons of this, and it lasts me a long time. 1 squirt in each drum. So.
Do you have chlorine or chloramine?
Both. The chloramine you aerate, and that can get rid of it. But the chlorine, the sodium thiosulfate will take right out. It bonds.
Yeah.
And you get rid of the chemical that it's bonded with. I spawn the fish in the 2s, in the critter keepers.
Oops, go back one. Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, now we're getting a little primitive here. God rest his soul, Ed Warner has been gone for a long time. One of the components of this formula, well, I haven't shown you the formula yet, but with the eggs, I have a special formula called the Ed Warner formula. One of the components is no longer available.
Yeah,
There
it's
it is.
really hard to make up, but
1 drop of the chlorosol. That's
Chlorosol.
the thing that's no
No
longer
longer
available.
available. Looks like a charm, little tiny
Yeah,
bottle.
5 drops of methylene blue and
Do not iodine salt.
half a teaspoon of 9-iodized
It
salt
did
in a
work.
gallon
It's pretty
container.
simple.
Yeah, it's extremely simple.
Did
And that's what I keep the eggs in.
did it keep, or did you make it up fresh each time?
Pardon?
Because I tried making some up and keeping it and then reusing it a couple of weeks later, and it didn't seem to work as well anymore.
Well, I keep a towel over it, and the methylene blue tends to disintegrate or lose its color. You're looking for 3 things: fungus, bacteria, and mold, right? Which,
Worked pretty well.
yeah, it always has worked well. Now, what I find
There's
out
a
is I
picture
do
of your
have.
egg, like that. There's where
Pardon?
there's your egg container. You're doing-
Yeah, there's the egg container. It's a standard butter dish. And I pour it in there. And you do check the egg still for the first 3 or 4 days to take out the fungus ones. Now this is applicable to eggs that you do a liquid solution with, which is the majority of my fish. You know, obviously the annuals and some of the fun little pan checks I prefer or require peat. But with the majority of my fish, which are Aphocinians and Apoplates, I use the formula, the Ed Warner formula. What I have found out is if you still have chlorosol, it's a non-organic and it lasts forever. And you only use 1 drop per gallon. So I still have plenty in reserve. Then I take a styro, I coat it with contact paper so it's dark, and that's where I keep my eggs. Typical Aphocinian is a 31-day, diapterans, I'd say, are 17 days, they're much shorter. But typical diapteran, or a typical Aphocinian, 25 to 30 days, same with an Apoplates. Some of the rivulas are longer. I have rivulus periodi that can take, 5 to 6 weeks. It's very slow.
Well, that's because it's colder in St. Louis
Huh?
than Houston.
Yeah, oh, you've got better.
Yeah, here,
I
it's
do.
about 15, 16 days for a lot of them.
I need to put them on the back porch.
There you
That's
go.
what I
But
do.
the deer will get them for you, though.
Yeah.
Then you'll lose them just like the hostas.
Exactly. And there's the fry cup, that's the first thing they go into with a little, nice.
That must be disconcerting, the picture of death.
Right.
I take that out of
This
the
is my
picture, Jack.
message.
Just
All
think-
you son of a guns, every chance you get, the crippled ones, the ones with the deformed tails. I do it mercifully. I use a few drops of clove oil, which I get online for a few dollars. Put them in a cup with the clove oil. In 2 minutes, they're belly up. And if you rub it on your gums, you won't feel it when the dentist drills, because you go completely numb. And it's fantastic stuff, and it's a very merciful way to take out sick and old fish. Anyway, these are some of the drugs that I use. Bosman's is extinct. It's no longer used. Flute guard is no longer used.
Marison's the only thing you see that anymore.
It's the only thing available.
Kenny, do you guys see Marison anymore?
I can
Yeah.
get Marison.
I've got some.
Yeah, I just don't order too many Mardell products.
Well,
in
I
the
don't
shop.
think flute guard's available anymore.
No, I
Well, we
haven't
use
seen any.
flubendazole. That's what I brought.
So,
And
Yeah,
flubendazole.
But the
that's
first
a
two,
good-
they're long gone.
Yeah. Well, the one became illegal.
Yeah, because it worked.
Yeah, well, no, it was not intense. Okay, let's talk about fish and other critters. This is Gary Lang's magic. I've got a buddy in St. Louis. When he's off his meds, he's a little difficult to deal with. When he's on his meds, he's
Aren't we
wonderful.
all?
Great photographer, yeah. This is one of my very favorite fish. I haven't seen it in years.
No
It's
way.
Crove-Athiosimian. Is it gone, the Curie?
I don't know anybody's keeping it in the States at all
No,
anymore, Jack.
I don't,
I don't
and I
know.
even asked Kotmer.
I hadn't seen it in the DKG show.
Yeah, the last person Kotmer said had it was the guy who spoke a couple of years ago,
Oh.
Christoph.
Yeah,
And I haven't
but
seen
lovely
it.
little fish.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. It was one of my favorites.
Now this one was in the show.
Continues
that
to be
one,
one of my
yeah.
favorites.
Pretty.
Still gorgeous. When they get the extensions, this one's been cheap.
That one in the show was, I don't know if it's available, but it's gonna look like that or better when it gets older. 'cause the
As
fish
they
is great.
mature, they really
Yeah.
did spectacular.
Yes.
They don't look like much is fried.
No,
This one is one of my absolute favorites. Try to find it.
can't. Germans have some.
Yeah,
And one of
odd.
the French,
Odd
yes,
tails.
and one of the Frenchmen had it, but I haven't seen anybody else.
Did he ship
Did
it?
he, whatever, he takes pictures a lot.
Yeah, well, I think he might be gone. He was very sick.
Oh, it's too
So,
bad. I wonder who got his fish.
I love this one. But, can't get any more.
Well, it's very common if somebody croaks, so if I go and get hit by a bus, Jane will be calling most of you people because
Yep.
they're out of here.
This is a very
Taking over
good
the fish.
picture of a fish that we collected in Cameroon in West Africa. It was much more attractive, but this is not a good picture of it. It's the Bioko Island fish. Bioko Island is owned by Cameroon. And one of our guys. went
This
over
is
there.
gorgeous.
Yeah, that's one we all have.
Go to
Thanks
Jim
Jimmy.
Gazier's basement.
That's
That is gorgeous.
his
Think I
best
need
fish.
It's lovely.
And I have it in the tank now.
Do you?
They're starting to spawn.
That's a cooler water fish. It doesn't do well in Houston unless you keep your house at 75 or below.
Yeah.
But they look like the photograph. They are great.
Yeah, blow your eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
Boxers I owe Billy.
Yeah, that's
That location
Chuck
is not-
McLam. That's his.
Uh-huh.
He does real well with that. He lives in Pennsylvania. He keeps it in the basement where it's cool.
He never brings fish to the show.
No.
but-
But he has lots of good ones.
Yeah,
This-
this one's gorgeous. This was from Gary Green.
I've seen it, but I've never had it. It's
Right.
probably with a cold water fish.
Yeah. I keep it low when I breed it. I keep it on the bottom
Jack?
shelf.
Jack,
Yeah.
has that disappeared for like a few years? I haven't seen that for a few years.
This one here?
No, the last one.
Oh,
Boxers I owe
go
Billy.
back for a second.
It was at Nationals a couple of years back.
Yeah, Gary Greenwood has it, or had it.
He had it, I don't know if he still does.
Yeah, he's starting to have physical problems, so I don't know what he has. He has visual problems.
But again,
his eyes
that's
are-
one that looks like the picture. Somebody used to go, well, I took a real fish picture, but mine never looked like that and I've never seen it. But that one looks like that. It's
Yeah,
spectacular.
it was, I kept it in a bottom tank.
Yeah.
And it did very well.
Because even in your basement, it would be too warm at the top.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry I gave it up. Yes,
Is
Pete?
that the one that's on the back of your shirt there?
No, oh, Jesus, did I forget my shirt? I'm sorry. I promised you, you didn't remind me, dear. Pardon me.
Is that
Okay.
the one on the back of your?
No, this is Rivulus vividus, which I have 2 strains, which I'm breeding right now. Thanks to Jane, I've got this beautiful shirt. So, I was supposed to put that on when I first started. It's too hot.
Your feet's gonna be docked.
Yeah, you're right, I'm in peak voodoo. So,
Sleep on the couch
There will
tonight.
be a bunch of fry, Orium, who's the Dutchman, California, Ray Van Dien. Bought a pair, and they weren't doing anything, and all of a sudden, he
We
went
started
away,
to use-
no, he went away to Europe for the 2 weeks, he got
Uh-huh.
COVID, and whoever was feeding his fish did something, and he's got bazillion fry, he says, so he fry, like 2 containers of 6 fry, Oriums you don't see very often, they're pretty little fish.
Mark Clavity has.
Yeah, and they're expensive buggers when you see a pair generally
Yes.
available.
Oh, hey, I can make some money.
There you go, there you go.
I'm starting to get eggs, as a matter of fact.
Good.
Ooh, am I gonna get money out of this guy? So,
Probably getting everything for the speaking to you, Jay.
yeah, you're right.
We didn't tell you that.
Pardon?
Disappeared, oh, never mind. That's-
And these are diapterons. They're among the most coveted of the old world fish. Absolutely gorgeous from the, how do you pronounce it? Massif Chaillot?
Yes, must have showed.
In
Heavy
the lovely
forest.
country of Gabon. If you don't value your life, it's a wonderful place to visit.
Most diseases that are
Yeah.
difficult,
Yeah.
been there a bunch of times.
If you want yellow fever, you're almost guaranteed. Everybody but me came back with malaria from Cameroon, so I can only imagine.
Just this.
I'll go back for 1 second. I want to talk about these. There's 4 different diapterons. Diapteron is the subgenus with this group. Fulgens is the most popular. I think it's the most beautiful.
And Georgia, pretty close.
Yeah, Georgiae is very close. Fulgens has these orange margins on its caudal, on both ends of the caudal. Georgiae only on the bottom. But the body itself is much more colorful than Fulgens, I think. And then the other 2 are Cyanus dictum and Abyssinium, which everybody said, oh, that's the most boring. It has disappeared off the face of the earth, and everybody wants it now. And they're paying great gobs of money. So.
I will.
Pardon?
I will.
You will. You're willing to pay.
More power to it.
Cold water fish.
Yep.
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
70
Very
degrees,
cold
likes
water
it
fish.
sweat.
So if you want to keep them here, you better get an air conditioner for your aquarium.
That's right.
They do exist.
That's right. Or drop the
Chillers.
occasional
Chillers.
ice.
Yep.
And this little guy is Zygema. He's another gorgeous little West African. I talk a lot about West African because I was lucky enough to visit in 1998 with 2 biologists, a ichthyologist and a microbiologist. The microbiologist at that time was a postgrad student. He had just completed his PhD. The ichthyologist was an established professor at St. Lucie, which is our Jesuit school. He was one of my closest friends. It still is one of my closest friends, although he moved west and we haven't seen him in a couple of years. So we collected for 3 terrific weeks in Cameroon. And Budafolo, Exogoidium, is also another one of my very favorites.
That was real popular in the late 80s and then
Yeah.
again mid-90s and then.
Well, I still have it.
You do,
It's
but
sweet.
you don't see it at
No,
shows very
no,
often
you don't.
anymore. We haven't received any in the last decade.
Really?
For mail-in or anything, no.
Oh, okay.
Very
Gosh, the
uncommon.
next time you're in my fish room, you need to tell me that. You will get-
Steve,
I have already
Janie,
as
pack,
well.
pack my 2 nets, Janie, honey, we're gone. We're out of here.
And that is Masana. It's one of the really pretty Epiclades, not the prettiest. Lamatiid, which you have in this show, is far and away the most attractive of the epiphlats, in my opinion. Now, you may have a different opinion, I don't know, we don't agree on everything. But I love Lamadia, and I have one of those 18 spots that's filled with them, and it's one of my absolute favorites. This one we caught at Corrupt Park in Cameroon, and its postmark, or its post name is HAH98, Heller, Aspinwall, and Herbeck. Although Tomas would say, oh no, it's Herbeck, Aspinwall, and Heller. But again, we discovered something kind of unfortunate about the American hobby. We brought these back with the HAH98 logo on them. Within 4 years, we could only find one species that we collected. Everything else had been mixed up, and our suffix had been dropped from them. We could only claim a very rare one, which I'm having a senior moment, a Chromathia singing.
Oh, you showed me in the basement, but I don't remember the name.
Yeah, Lubix. Not very pretty, but the fin structure is phenomenal.
I won't say pale, but it's a light color.
Yeah, it's a light brown, but the fins and the growth are unbelievable. It's a really magnificent fish, and it's just pure up the face of the earth.
Now would be a good time to remind people that when you get a fish, learn to spell the name the way you got it and put all the numbers the way they have it. If it's a dash, use a dash, because it's going to be real difficult, and it is now already difficult to get South American fish in if it even seems like it sounds like a Brazilian killifish. Now, a number of Brazilian killies are also Uruguayan or Paraguayan or Bolivian because they've been spread out by flooding and everything else over time. And unless you have the correct location citation with you and it comes in through U.S. Fish and Wildlife on a permit, it is illegal. It is also illegal to take it across state lines and give to somebody. So be very careful what you're doing, what you're importing. We had a Fish and Wildlife gentleman speak 2 years ago at the AKA/cichlid/rainbow live boat, Louisville. Okay, it's even longer when you get older, Jack. It seemed like years ago. And they were adamant about keeping track of people who buy fish on whatever it is on the eBay or
Aquabid.
Aquabid. Thank you. Aquabid, yes. So that's where they're getting your names. And if they find that you're ordering stuff from Yugoslavic in Czechoslovakia or Czech or the Czech Republic nowadays, and he's on their list, they'll come visit you. They visited the guy who simply ordered from him, but he ordered legal stuff and he had all the paperwork. Charlie Nunziata, one of the more respected fish keepers in America, they came to visit him. Now they spent 2 hours there and they left educated because Charlie, I'm sure, talked to him for hours and showed him everything, and he had nothing illegal. But if you don't spell it right and you don't keep track of it, we could lose them in the hobby permanently. Plus, if you drop the Corrupt Park off of here, you now have aquarium strain. Well, if Hans has that and Mark had the same thing, but one of them forgets at the show and it just says species whatever on there, you've got an aquarium strain, you shouldn't crossbreed it. Basically, we've lost it, we can't prove it, and that's a problem. So, practice your penmanship and make sure the H-A-H doesn't look like H-A-N. But seriously, we need to do a better job.
The other argument for that is with something like a gardener eye, where there are different locations, there are totally different patterns. You're doing a tremendous disservice to the hobby if you throw a mop in there that's previously been in Gardner Eye lacustris and you're throwing it into a Nigeriana stink. You're mixing two species.
Speaking of that, Jack, there you go.
I was about to say, lacustris, you're
Pardon?
doing good.
There's
There's
lacustris.
HAH90, let me wipe this tear out. We captured this at Lake Lacustris in northeastern Cameroon, right below Nigeria. And it was one of the biggest kicks of my life because it hadn't been in this country in many years. And it's not as beautiful as some of the ones that are in the other room here, but it's a magnificent
They're really pretty though when they're such a color like that, Jeff. The fin's nice and they come right up to the front of the aquarium.
Oh yeah, they're friendly, they're Now, I should tell you that one of the fish in the other room is not a wild fish, the one from Japan, the Nigerianus, what's it? Massage, yeah. That's a bred fish, the same as the orange Australia. It's not a sport, but it was bred to that color and that pattern.
Oh, okay.
And it's not a wild fish. So,
So it's still the right collection location, it's just been
it's not the right
selectively bred
collection.
since then.
It's a made up.
Oh,
So you won't find it. You won't find it nowhere. You won't find that location.
Look, you have a lot of things that showed up in shows over the years that the Australia was never orange in the wild.
No.
But some showed that color and they kept breeding that one and you got a pretty standard orange. There's
In
nothing
Germany,
wrong with it.
yeah, they fixed it.
Yeah.
They fixed the coloring. And they did the same thing with Apicylus lineatus, which is a rust color, but it's a magnificent fish. Well, they somehow got a gold that turned up in it, a sport. And they rebred
and
it.
the Guernsey blue and red, is that the same idea too, or are those?
No. Well, there is some blue in the lineatus gold.
There were a bunch of versions of Lineatus bred back in the 70s, going into the 80s. Different colors, not just the gold, but there were red strain, blue strain, green strain.
Yeah, pretty sure it was lineatus.
Yeah.
Because typically it's a very attractive rust color, like a brown red.
Yeah, what they called the golden wonder killie.
Well, that's the gold one,
Right,
yeah.
I'm saying they had different colors.
Yeah, just go to PetSmart,
Take
you
a
will
look
find it.
at, fishing egg listings from the late 70s.
Yeah.
We call them the humbucker.
I would make an appeal to people, not so much with orange Australia, because it's firmly entrenched in the hobby. And probably it's too late to complain about Gardnerite. But I would make an appeal to try to keep them as pure as possible by location. Because Gardnerites are very, very different from location to location. The one that Art just showed you had no yellow in it at all, no red. It's pure blue, it's magnificent, but it's very, very different than the other Gardnerites. And I just hate, like hell, to see it crossed with a Massage or a Nigerianus or, one of the others.
Okay. So you can tell about the tank you inherited.
Okay, the tank I inherited, during his last 2 years of medical school and his first year of internship, Mark, my son, had a saltwater tank, and he had a tank with with 4 dart frogs, which his wife hated because the fruit flies used to get out and wander around the apartment. And also almost ended in divorce. But anyway, he got his residency in New York in ER, in emergency medicine, and the frogs and the saltwater tank came to me. I felt very fortunate at the time until we had our first power outage and lost all of the saltwater tank. I was so cured at that point of ever having saltwater.
Done deal.
These guys lasted 15 of the 18 years that I've had this fish room. They were magnificent. And I don't know how old they were when I got them from Mark. There were 2 different species. This one, I think, is the Azurius, the blue one. You can see him up in the corner. The other one was a yellow one with black markings. It was called Leucamellus. Leuca is blue. I've got them just backwards. This, I think, is Leucamellus. The other one is...
Azul's the blue.
We're going to have to look them up.
Azul's the blue.
Pardon?
The Azul's the blue. Azul's blue.
Okay, Azul.
The Leucamellus was the bumblebee dart frog.
Okay,
Which is
that's the yellow with the black spots. Okay, all right. Here I bit my lip and gave my thanks to Gary.
Hold your breath and, yeah.
So anyway, that is the total of it.
Jack, thank you very much. That's
Okay.
great. Before you sit down, can't get back up, ask your questions now.
Jack,
Yeah, man.
why don't you tell them where they can see the video?
Oh, okay. There's 2 videos of my fish room. forget the first guy's name, he's with a big
Flip
company.
court.
The second one is Lucas Metz, or Lucas,
LRV Aquatics.
yeah,
LRB?
Lucas. Yeah, and they're both on YouTube. Yeah, but Lucas Brett's has the best one. It's got all the species that I had at that time, and I had just returned from Peru with some beautiful Molinas. So these are the annuals. I went there during the winter, and I got some beautiful annual killifish, and those are in the fishroom exhibit. So thanks for reminding me. Can't
Tell
take
them
this
how
off.
to find it.
Pardon? Oh, Jack Heller's Fish Room with Lucas Bretz. So on YouTube, you go on YouTube and you Google Jack Heller's Fish Room. with Lucas
Just
Bretz.
Jack Heller, you'll get it.
Well, you'll get the other one too.
Yeah.
You're gonna get mine here too.
Sorry, I hope I haven't sucked up too much.
Okay, Jack, thank you very much. Everybody take a short